Hi everyone, hope you guys are doing well today. This is the third video in the series that I'm doing about the basics of moving and using SketchUp. So the reason I'm doing this series is because I feel like there's a lot of people like me who, when they first start out on some of these programs, they get overwhelmed and it's kind of confusing to understand all these tools and how to move things around and how to, we're working on this space that's this big. This is almost infinite. And so to be able to move around inside this 3D world can be really confusing. Now, on my last video, we talked a little bit about some tools. We talked about the toolbar up here and how to add some things to it. And one of the videos I did earlier was about planes. So it was drawing in planes and understanding where you're at. And planes are extremely important when it comes to rendering and CAD work in general, because you're always drawing on a plane. And by that I mean, like, here's the green, here's the red, and here's the blue. Each one of those is a plane. And if you want to make it simpler, this guy standing here, even though he's two-dimensional drawing, his plane would basically be this blue one, because he's parallel to this line. He's standing up in this line. If you go left or right, with the red line, that's following another plane. The green one's following another plane. The axis on here will give you an option to figure some of these things out. But when it comes to the moving things around, I want to focus mainly on moving things in this video. So let's do something simple. And again, this goes back to the planes again. So say I'm going to draw something right here, and I got this rectangle chosen, and I go to draw something. You'll notice that it immediately is following this blue plane. Like if I go over here, you can see it lines up with this blue plane. And the reason being is because if we look at where we're at in space, we're on the blue plane. We got our horizon in the background, and if we draw right here on this face, the computer is going to immediately adjust it to the blue plane. And this is just a small review, just to get us started here. If I wanted to draw on this other plane, generally I will move so that my view is looking at this plane. So now that I choose the same thing and I come down here and I make a drawing on here, you'll notice it's following the green over here because it's on the green plane. Pretty simple. These things are really important, but I want to talk about moving. This whole video is about moving things. So if you'll notice, you'll see that I'm clicking from Orbit, which is the tool that you see here with the red and green around it, and I hit the Shift key on the keypad, and you see the hand, which is the pan tool. So I learned early on to do this and this a lot, to move my view around if I'm working on something. So one of the things that I notice a lot of people do when they start out is they don't necessarily learn the shortcuts. Shortcuts are keypad instructions, like hitting the Shift key to go to pan. So I've chosen Orbit. So when you're in the orbit mode and you want to look around, obviously you can hit your left click on the mouse, and I only use a mouse. I don't use a 3D mouse or any of the more advanced tools. I'm kind of old school with this, and I want these videos to be with somebody who has the basics so they can learn how to do the basics. If you want to go out and buy a $150 or $200 3D mouse later, that's great, but most people don't have that. I have a $10 mouse in my hand, and I think that a lot of things can be done with that. So learning the keystroke shortcuts are super important. So again, I'm in this orbit mode. I want to move around and look at my work. I'm looking at here, but I want to slide it left to right, which would be a pan, which would be the pan mode. You can go up here and click pan and come down here. That's a lot of movement. Come back here and click orbit. It's a lot of movement. When you're in the orbit mode, if you just hover, you just in any way, it doesn't matter where you're at, you hit the Shift key and you're going to pan. So whatever you're doing, you're panning this. So that's your view. And of course, I'm going to left click the mouse to grab something to move it. And also, when you're moving things around, if you want to move this around, don't try to grab out here because you're grabbing out here. If this is the center focus of what you're working on, go to the middle of it, and when you left click on the mouse, grab the middle of that object so that you can move it around. Even if you shift over and use the Shift key to pan, you're still on this object. I see a lot of people try to move something and they're over here doing something, they can't quite figure it out. You have to be on the object that you want, just like when you zoom in and out. So I'm zooming in and out over here. If I go over here and zoom in and out, I'm zooming way out here, so it's not where I want to be. If I want to zoom in and out on this, make sure that you're placing your cursor on whatever it is that you're trying to focus on. It helps you move around, and as you get more advanced, when you're zooming in and out of stuff, I do a lot of pan with the Shift key and the orbit to move around. So let's just say, for an example here, I'm going to pull this out. Let's just say I was doing, let's go over here and let's do a circle. Let's say I was over here and I did a circle on this face, and then I wanted to come over here and push it in a little bit. So I'm back to the moving myself around because I'm looking at this. This is part of the movement tool. See how I'm going back and forth between the shift key and the pan versus the orbit? And I want to look in here. I don't want to go like this to look in here. And you see how when you place your cursor somewhere and you zoom in without doing anything else, just with the scroll. I have a scroll on my mouse, and I would advise anybody to use the scroll on there because it's a lot easier to zoom in and out. It's the easiest way to zoom in and out. But if I want to zoom in and out over here, I put the cursor over there, and I can zoom into this and bring it right into where I want to go. If I want to look at this corner, same thing. You want to put the cursor there and move into it. So use the cursor to pinpoint where you want to be when you're moving things around. Grab it with a pan. This is the orbit. This is the pan. So again, the shift key and moving things around. So what if we want to move something a little differently? Let's just say we want to move this whole object this way and we want it to stay on the green. Well, the easiest way is always to put yourself in a position where you're looking in this plane, so that if you go to move, it's easier for the computer to understand that you're trying to go on the green line. So let's say we click this 3 times, left click it 3 times, and it grabs the whole object. And let's just say we want to move something. We come over here and go to the move tool. We're hovering over this piece and we're on the face. On every keyboard you have your arrow buttons, up, down, left, and right. So I'm hovering over this. If I hit the up button, just touch it once, when I go to move this, see how it's pretty much locked on, even if I'm going like this left and right, because I hit that up button one time, it's locked into that blue axis. So see how much easier it is to move that up and down, and it's not going to bounce around, you're not going to float around. I'm moving this mouse all over the place, but it's locked in to that blue axis. Now if I come off of that and come back over here, it's not going to be on it again. So I have to hover over it, hit the blue, hit the up button, and now it's on the blue axis. The blue one's easy to remember because it's the up button. So even though, see, I'm moving the cursor around here, it doesn't matter. I'm up and down. So if I want to move it in another direction, let's say I hit the left arrow, I go to move it. See how it's pretty much, I'm moving all over here and it's left and right because the left arrow was chosen, and you only have to tap it one time. You don't have to hold it down or anything, and it locks it in until you're done moving. Now if I let go and I go to move this again, it's free to move all over the place. So again, I'm just hovering over this. It's on the face. I hit the right button, and now you see that it's moving with the red. I can move all over this place, but it's locked into that red axis. So all you got to do is when you want to move an object on here, just find your object that you want to move. You've chosen the object because you can see it's in the blue. And there's dozens of ways of doing that. And I want to show you that real quick just so you can, I'm going to grab this thing and I'm going to delete it. Right click, erase. So I'm going to go back over to my axis, and I do have the habit of going back in there, but you don't have to. You can, if you're over here doing this and you hit the O button, that goes in the orbit. So again, learning some of your shortcuts. But let's say now I want to move this, and I want to move it on this red line. Well, I can come over here and select it and left click it and grab the whole thing as a whole, and now I have it collected. I can click off in space, or I can hover over this and 1, 2, 3 clicks consistently grabs the entire object. Now I don't have this object turned into a component or anything, it's just a drawing, it's just floating through there. So I want to go back to the move, I hit the M button, or I can come in here and hit it on the toolboard. So one of the things to remember is a lot of the commands with the keyboard shortcuts are the first letter of that command, like orbit is the O, M is the move. When you're in orbit mode to moving things around like I was before, I'll just say I click over here and I'm orbiting, and again I want to pan, I'm moving this way but I want to pan, so just hit the shift key while you've got it in orbit mode and it'll move this around. Learning how to move things around is extremely important, so I'm going to hit the M button, and you notice it goes into the M move again. I just hover over this face, one time I touch the up button, and now when I go to move this, no matter where I go with my hand, it's moving it up and down. Now if you want to do this and you want to do it on a point, come over here and let go of the mouse, just let it rest on the end point, and again just one click touch on the up button, and now it's locked into that blue axis, but I'm on that corner, so that would make sense if I was wanting to align this with something, or attach it to something, and I just need to move it up a little bit. When I first started out, I didn't know these things, and I bumbled around a lot because I wasn't able to control my motion of moving an object. So again, I'm still in the move mode, but once you let go of that, it's no longer in the blue axis. So now that I'm just on this piece, I'm going to hit the left button, and I go to move something, and see now the left button is hooked onto the green axis. No matter where I move, it wants to move it that way. So if I stop and I let go again, I hit the right button and I go to move it, it immediately goes onto the red arrow, which is the red line for the red axis. So these are extremely easy ways to move things around. Once you let off of that and you're back in orbit mode, again, you can move this thing around any way you want, and the zoom in and zoom out. So the zoom in and zoom out is super important because let's just say you come over here and whoops, I can't come over here and you've got, let's just copy this for a second. We come back over here and let's just say we paste it in place. We got two of these guys over here. See how I chose that dot? So when I first attached it, I'll do it again just to make it easier. Undo paste. So I'm in the select mode. You want to be in the select mode for those sort of things. And I come in over it and I hit paste. Well, I've got a hold of it, kind of, and so I move it around. And if you set something and you let off of the mouse and just let it sit there for a second, the command will come up that it grabs it like this endpoint, and now I left click the mouse and you can see I can move it around, but if I want to align it with something, it's easier to align a point like a corner than it is to move something else. So I didn't click anything, but because it snaps itself to place right there and I left it there for a second to snap itself into place, it identifies that, and then when I go to move it, it'll instantly let me move that. Now I'm on here again. If I want to one touch on the up button, now I'm moving in the blue axis up and down. But if I want to grab this corner and go around to grab something, then it'll lock in. But this is a free movement. It's not actually locked into anything. You can line it up because you sit there long enough to the end point, and it will align with it. But again, if you want to move it, and let's just say we want to move it up, the easiest way to do that is hit the up button on the arrow one time, and now we're in moving up and down with the blue arrow mode. So these are just some basics when it comes to moving things around, and I'm going to focus a lot on this with this series because it's kind of complicated to moving around. So I want to move through here and I want to see this over here. Again, move your cursor to where you want to see something. Hit that shift button so I can pan over here. I want to see in this little corner right here. I put the cursor there so I can move into that corner. If you just zoom in, it'll take you there. Zoom out and move around instead of like fighting to move around. There's a lot of really easy tricks to moving objects and viewing them so that you can build your model in SketchUp. So that's it for this video. It's about moving things around and seeing things. So I hope you guys enjoyed it, and have a great day. If you like the video, please subscribe to the channel and follow. I'll make videos as much as I can on topics that I think are easy for people to understand. And again, I'm doing this for people who are new to this and they want to learn something and maybe they feel a little intimidated by some of this technology and some of this 3D rendering. It can be really tough to work, and especially if you don't have friends that are around to help you. Sometimes YouTube is amazing, sometimes it's not. So I'm going to focus on things that I think are basic that I wish I would have learned earlier on. Alright, have a good day everybody, and we'll talk to you soon.